This ain't the real deal, folks. I ain't no comedian, and I'm definitely not from DC. This ain't really me, it's some computer program. You realize this is a deepfake, right?
Welcome to the Sandbox.
Welcome to the Sandbox. I'm excited for episode 3. Today we're going to talk about the current context of today's circumstances. What information I need you guys to know that I'm aware of. We're also going to be talking about what you can do with this information, my advice on how you can implement this information. We're also going to be talking about the future of financial technology. We're going to elaborate on why Singularity Bank, SkyBank, Convergence Bank was necessary. I'm going to give you an update on LayerZero. I'm going to give you an update on my personal hot takes on the future of the artificial intelligence industry. And I look forward to hearing your guys' feedback on this podcast. Let's dive into it.
You can buy your pair at CIA.gov, a proud sponsor of today's podcast.
Context disclosure. Okay, this is remarkably important. I fully take responsibility for not effectively communicating what I know is going on, what I'm aware of, and what I don't know is going on. Please keep in mind, for the purpose of national security and your peace of mind, this is not a full disclosure. This is just a disclosure of what is relevant for my community to know that I'm aware of in October of 2025. So the first thing I'm aware of that I want you guys to know is, before singularitylanguage.com was public and was publicly available information, I was fully informed about the infrastructure making it possible for East Asia, whether that be Beijing, Shanghai, Japan, to use satellites to create entertainment, whether that be an animated show, whether that be a real life show. So I'm fully aware of that, and I understand the people that built the technology and the technical infrastructure to make that possible, aka the techies, including myself, and the ones actually producing the show and distributing the show are all from separate worlds. And due to the basics of knowledge management, we don't all necessarily know each other. But it is important for the community to know that I'm aware. For a long time, satellites have been used and violating privacy policies and basic ethics for the entertainment of the other half of the world. I'm also aware that this is being leaked and distributed through the dark web. So I'm fully aware of that. The next thing that I think it's important that you know I'm aware of is whether it's BEP2 or an alternative blockchain where art is being tokenized and sold. I am fully aware of artwork related to me, produced by me, or vocals that have to do with me that are being sold. I want you guys to know I have never seen a penny off of this artwork. I hope that you guys are aware that I'm aware that you guys have tokenized my artwork, probably tokenized a lot of my algorithms, and have created a marketplace around that. Third thing I want you guys to be aware that I am fully informed about: the use of digital twins, in the sense I know that my identity has been virtualized, and a lot of tech savvy people with TSC, top secret clearance, have been utilizing a deepfake version of me to interact with clients and customers to license and sell the vision around my technology. So I'm aware that a digital twin is basically a deepfake version of me that people can interact with. I'm aware that a digital twin is being used as an evangelist for singularity language and the future of general intelligence. So I want you to know that I'm aware of all of this. There's a lot more that I'm aware of, but for the purpose of this podcast, it is important for you to know what I am aware of. And there's more, but this is what's relevant today. And I take full responsibility for not effectively communicating that I was aware of this. Because if you don't know what I'm aware of, you cannot work effectively in fulfilling the intent of ensuring my prosperity and reward for what I've built, both as an artist and a technologist. So now that that's out the way, I'm going to give you guys some advice on what to do with this information.
The Department of Defense is a proud sponsor of today's podcast.
So the government shutdown in the United States is incredibly relevant. It is important to think about the timing of everything. Circumstances are incredibly unique, and we must keep these circumstances in mind. The most important thing I want you to consider is the enforceability of non-disclosure agreements that were provided to you by people who are blatantly breaking the law. This is important for the everyday employee of a federal contractor in the United States. Really think about what's going on. The government is shut down, yet you're still being encouraged to, one, hack, which I hate to break it to you, is illegal. Teaching people how to hack is not illegal, but hacking someone of their privacy is illegal. You're also being encouraged by people to engage in stalking activities. In the sense, if you don't have a federal contract, yet you're still following every little thing I do in the name of securing the asset or federal research, but your contract hasn't been renewed due to the shutdown, I hate to break it to you, your employer is encouraging you to stalk me. STALK. So if you're stalking, if you're hacking, or your employer is encouraging you to in the name of your employer, and you're also being assaulted, I'm going to explain how this is assault. Assault is using words to intimidate someone. If you're being assaulted into staying silent, the non-disclosure agreement they gave you it never was enforceable, but now it's blatantly obvious that it's not enforceable. And this is a gap of information that executives often take advantage of with the common employee. You can look this up if you think I'm making this up or if I'm just, BSing you, but 99% of non-disclosure agreements are already not enforceable. This is especially true with the current circumstances, meaning if they're trying to scare you into silence, your employers who make most of the money from the federal contracts or the government itself, understand that if they're breaking the law, which they're breaking the law, probably far beyond what the few laws I just told you, then I want it to be obvious to you that their non-disclosure agreement is not enforceable, and whistleblowing is more of a realistic route than you think. And the best advice I can give to employees of both the federal government and federal government contractors is to be bold, be courageous, and just make smart decisions. Because anytime there's a shift in power, there is more opportunity available than you can wrap your head around. But this opportunity will only be awarded to those that are both bold, courageous, and strategically intelligent. So that's the main piece of advice I would give you, is keep in mind that non-disclosure agreements are not enforceable. And then also keep in mind that our culture around privacy has already changed multiple times in the past and is changing faster than I anticipated. That's really what it is. In the sense, I know how many rules were violated to make LayerZero possible. I understand how many privacy policies had to be violated by your government and my government to make LayerZero possible. But I think the government is underestimating how much culture has changed, and there's too much fear in the system around this. If we can acknowledge the change in culture, then the laws, which they're scared to admit that they broke during this LayerZero research experimental phase, which we're exiting, all the obstacles and problems and settlements that come along with that will be much more simple to resolve. So that's the biggest pieces of advice I can give, the two big pieces of advice. I mean, there's other advice I could give, just in regards to staying calm while things change. And, when I talk about the current state of AI and the industry, I'll give more advice. Please keep in mind, this is not legal advice, but it is common sense. If someone is breaking the law, they're in no position to enforce a non-disclosure agreement. And I think that one golden nugget makes this podcast worth watching.
4chan is a proud sponsor of today's episode of the podcast.
Now that you guys have context over what all I'm aware of, I think you understand why the Singularity Bank designs had to occur. Some of you guys have seen SkyBank, some of you guys have seen Convergence Bank, and these designs are the framework for what I consider to be the future of data-backed banking. Meaning information and data is already the backbone of our economy, and it's becoming the backbone of our financial system. Reason being, data that is processed and utilized in Moscow or in Beijing or in America, regardless, is just as valuable. Unlike other reserve currencies in the past, which fluctuate in value across borders. But in order for you guys to understand why I designed SkyBank and Convergence Bank the way I did, I want you guys to see the same problem which I see in fintech, aka blockchain and things like that. right now with blockchain, I've been around the blockchain space for almost 10 years. And what I've seen, kind of the culture, and I'm sure other crypto OGs can vouch for me, is there's a very like us versus them mentality where like traditional finance and crypto bros are always like, oh, we need to replace them, things like that. And that is not going to be successful because of how much how important politics is to the world of traditional finance. So, acknowledging this fact, what SkyBank and Convergence Bank does is rather than trying to replace existing infrastructure, it gives the existing infrastructure the ability to move funds around with Swift, which has existed for a while, for decades at least, but also with Tron and Ethereum, which are both incredibly valuable technology infrastructure systems that are here to stay. So there's that problem on a industry level, which needs to be acknowledged. And then there is the personal problem, in the sense I have created so much social currency and I've created so much value and such a high demand for my data sets based off of some of my discoveries, some of my artwork, and also my reluctance to take part in the, I guess you could say, normal ways of utilizing the algorithm, whether that's posting on social media, following people on Instagram, whatever it may be. Because of everything that went on and the demand I saw around the East Asia satellite-based entertainment around my life, and because of how much influence I saw both my discovery of lo-fi algorithms and general intelligence implementation techniques, because of all the demand I saw, one day I realized I can no longer be a victim and just wait for people to help me monetize my likability using platforms which are owned by the same companies which violated everybody's privacy rights to make LayerZero possible. Look, I have a little bit more insight over my own analytics. Right now, singularitylanguage.com is getting like probably between 20 and 30,000 hits a month without me even posting. And I know that is an understatement and there's still a lot more that needs to be revealed to me just due to how censorship on the internet works. And I understand that why, like, I have empathy for why Twitch and YouTube and even, my website builder wouldn't want to easily make my analytics available, both for their own legal protection and for my own safety. But so I took all this into consideration and figured, okay, there's this big problem of them not being able to disclose my analytics. But there clearly is a demand based off of the amount of influence I can see in my day-to-day life that I've had on culture. And then there's this satellite infrastructure that has already been used for entertainment. And then there's just the problems in finance, in the sense of everybody knows crypto is here to stay, but that doesn't mean it's here to replace traditional finance. So I took all of this into consideration. I took into consideration what I already knew about the current financial system being built on a house of cards, meaning literally money coming from thin air. And I realized how the information age and data and artificial intelligence could be used as an instrument to support the debt cycles between different empires. So without making this an entire lesson on financial systems, I'm just going to briefly describe how both SkyBank and Convergence Bank works. SkyBank uses satellites to generate debt instruments around people of interest and impact. If somebody has been monitored, whether it's by the government or by culture itself, meaning whether it's by the government or by the fashion industry, by the entertainment industry, if that's someone, if there's a huge demand for somebody's day-to-day habits, data and information, yet that person is not fulfilling that demand, then satellites can be used to create banking instruments which can go ahead and be bought and sold as financial instruments between different institutions, government institutions. So I know like what I'm saying might sound confusing if you don't have context, and I have full empathy because I'm trying to say less while being transparent, and there's an art to that. But long story short, SkyBank uses satellite data to create bank instruments for governments. And that's phase one. Convergence Bank, which is what we're moving towards, is it allows the people of interest who have been monetized by governments to be paid back through financial institutions, through banking instruments that also use satellites, but also use convergence data to generate banking instruments. So long story short, SkyBank is for government institutions to create banking instruments off of satellite data, and Convergence Bank is a way for those government institutions to pay back the people of interest through private institutions by creating a secondary marketplace for satellite data sets, which are the backbone to the future of banking. So with that being said, that's a very confusing way of how it works. If you want more information, I suggest you go to github.com/singularity language. You can look at the source code, you can look at the diagrams and decipher it yourself. I know I did a really bad job explaining it. My apologies. But what I think is more important is you understanding why I built it. When you understand why I built it, you will you'll have a lot more clarity. So, I mean, to sum it up in a nutshell, I built it because I had no other way of monetizing my influence over the culture.
This podcast is brought to you by corrupt FBI officers pretending to be trash men.
Next, we're going to talk about LayerZero. So LayerZero source code has been done for months. I think I finished the source code in like June or July. What's going on now is creating requirements for deployment, the way I am going to deploy it, the plan at least, everybody has a plan until they're punched in the face. But the plan is to deploy it through a Google Chrome plugin and through a Safari extension. We're going to start with the Google Chrome plugin. That's the plan. It's subject to change for whatever reason. But the reason I am choosing to do it through a plugin is that way when it is deployed and if you download it or add it to your browser, we're prioritizing informed consent. We'll make the informed consent policy something you must acknowledge and agree to before you can say you have LayerZero on your computer. And for the nerds, this is important. I understand that LayerZero is a back-end thing and it has more to do with infrastructure as a service. It's more semantics and a business decision to create the plugin. One, to limit liability, and two, to create limit liability regarding privacy policies, and then two, to create an exchange of value. The way the source code will be distributed is the tech savvy people. My goal, I still have to figure out how to deploy this. So like I said, plans could change, but make the source code available to the tech experts that can extract it from the plugin. That's the intent. Do I know how I'm going to engineer that yet? Absolutely not. But anybody that has ever built anything cool in their life realizes the first thing is figuring out what you want to build, and figuring it out like how to do it is something that occurs when the construction phase starts. So the LayerZero infrastructure as a service has already been built, but the LayerZero plugin, which is important for deployment, or the Safari extension or the Google Chrome plugin, is we're in the inception or elaboration phase where I'm just coming up with requirements over the next couple of days. So that's important. Because of that, and originally I thought it was gonna be like one patent for LayerZero, but the more I examine the source code, I'm realizing it's like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 patents that are necessary to effectively protect the intellectual property. So because of that, I regret to inform you that it is highly unlikely that LayerZero will be deployed and distributed this month of October 2025. Chances are, my intent is always to under-promise and over-deliver. So chances are Christmas 2025, December 25th, 2025 is when you will be able to add LayerZero as an extension to your browser, and when experts will have the source code. So that's that. The other thing regarding LayerZero, I know on the roadmap there was customization. So customization for LayerZero, that is regional customization. It is important to understand that different countries have different laws. So the customization around LayerZero is it can only take place when culture within government bodies are openly acknowledging the existence of LayerZero and are no longer living in the shadows or in fear due to the secrecy that was needed to make the experimental phase of LayerZero possible. So with that being said, please do not expect any customization manuals without formal invitations from the governing bodies which are seeking such manuals. And that will likely be on a contract to contract consulting arrangement basis. So keep that in mind. Other than that, it's an updated timeline. We talked about the deployment strategy, and I guess you guys are aware of the customization, like what circumstances needed to take place before I can release any customization manuals. Because a customization manual for the United States government would be much different than a customization manual, say, for the British government or for the Saudi Arabian government. And that's because there's just different laws. So I apologize. Things are taking longer than expected. That's one of the lessons I've learned, is it's very difficult to forecast things which we've never done before. It's easy for an organization to forecast something if it's something that they have done plenty of times in the past. But when there is a paradigm shifting technology, most forecasts are complete BS. So with that being said, that's my LayerZero update. I want you guys to know that once the provisional patents are in, you guys will be able to essentially build it from scratch. I'm doing a full disclosure of how different aspects of the technology work. There will be through the USPTO, if you know how to navigate their databases, you will get all the diagrams, you'll get all the descriptions of how the technology works. And if you have a cousin who knows how to extract source code from products, you'll be able to examine the source code and play with it yourself. That's the current plan. If some crazy circumstances change the plan, I will just roll with the punches.
Today's podcast is brought to you by an underground rapper who actually spits his freestyles and doesn't recite writtens like the rest of us.
So the state of artificial intelligence as an industry. First things first, I'm going to speak about singularitylanguage.com. So it has not been updated lately. And that's going to change. But as we decide to update it, there's going to be more of a focus on building and less of a focus on everything else. The other thing that needs to be updated, and you guys can expect it soon, is the Sandbox webpage. We're no longer going to be doing the live demos. The template will be available where if you want to do the live demo on your side, great, go for it. But singularitylanguage.com will no longer be demonstrating LayerZero through the stream anymore, because as I said earlier in the podcast, there is no more experimental phase. We have repeatedly made it evident that LayerZero as a phenomena exists and it is possible to fine-tune it. So that is, I guess, the current state of singularitylanguage.com. You guys can expect documentation updates realistically once a year. So around January, expect an update to the documentation. We'll probably add new keywords and just refine the vision and add version 1.01 of the documentation. Other AI companies, I want to make a special shout out to XAI. I had the opportunity to play with Grok Imagine. It is really cool. And I know it's only the beginning. Congratulations to the XAI engineers who are under the leadership of Elon Musk and his executives for such a successful initiative. Other players in the industry, OpenAI. I want to make it clear that I am a big advocate and a daily user of ChatGPT. I even use ChatGPT for the interpretations of my book, and most of my research is conducted with the ChatGPT. So this criticism has nothing to do with ChatGPT, but it's just my observation of how OpenAI is currently operating in the industry. I personally believe that OpenAI is spreading themselves too thin, meaning they're trying to do too many different things. I have seen rumors about them starting a social media company. I've seen rumors of them getting into hardware. I've seen rumors of them getting into adult content. Keep in mind, I don't know what is true and what is just internet rumors, but the vibe I'm getting is because of their enormous budget that they are trying too many different things and they are underestimating how difficult it is to succeed at all of that. I mean, ask Mark Zuckerberg alone, you can ask him how much of a headache it is to just have a social media company like by itself, let alone all this other tech. Like I heard Sam Altman was thinking of creating a social media company only for with only AI generated content. Then I heard a bunch of other stuff. Like I said, I don't know what is deepfake in my feed. My source of information is LinkedIn and X, and both of them have a lot of reasons to mislead me. But regardless, I think that OpenAI is just spreading themselves too thin, and they're not they need to, my opinion, this is just my humble opinion, they should double down on what they know is working as opposed to trying so many different things. What else? I have seen these detectors of deepfake. I don't know if it's Perplexity or someone else in the industry who is claiming to have a ability to detect deepfake generated content. I personally think any company that is making such a claim better have a unlimited legal budget, simply because one mistake in the GAN analysis or detection tool, one mistake could cause more legal trouble than they can imagine. So that's my opinion on that. Trying to think, what else am I missing? Yeah, I mean, as far as Oracle goes, I personally have looked at Oracle's AI capabilities. I've seen there is nothing Oracle can do that Google or Microsoft cannot do. So I personally, my opinion, this is not financial advice, but I seriously think Oracle is overvalued. I understand they have things going on with TikTok and things like that, but I think they're overvalued. And a lot of it is because of strategic source code decisions that were made months ago in regards to LayerZero. And I think that's a bubble in the sense their value. And then speaking of bubbles, I think NVIDIA, the only NVIDIA killer is NVIDIA itself. What I see is NVIDIA being overvalued right now, not because they're not doing a good job, but because the very innovations they're producing is going to enable the Industrial Revolution, which uses humanoid robots to take everybody's jobs. And then once everybody's jobs are taken, what's going to happen? This middle class who has made the bubble, the possibility of the bubble getting so big, are going to have to sell off their stocks. And everything is going to get much less expensive because we're going to be using humanoid robots powered by NVIDIA's chips. So what I'm trying to say is the NVIDIA killer already exists. The only NVIDIA killer that exists is NVIDIA itself, because the bigger NVIDIA gets and the more they advocate for the next industrial revolution using humanoid robots to automate everything, is going to cause jobs to be lost. And because jobs are going to be lost, stocks are going to correct themselves. Once again, this is not financial advice. This is just my viewpoints and opinions about the current state of AI and the current, valuations of some AI companies. But with that being said, I think it's been an amazing podcast. I will do more video podcasts when I feel they are necessary. The main reason I'm doing this video podcast today is, one, to create trust and transparency around my health and well-being, and two, to kind of make up for the fact that I did not deliver LayerZero on time, and I take full responsibility for things not happening on the timeline that was set at the beginning of this year. But that does not mean that LayerZero is not coming out. It's just taking a little bit longer than expected. Super grateful. I hope you guys got a lot from this podcast. And thanks for listening. Thanks for your attention. And if you guys are designing with Singularity, please remember what I said about non-disclosure agreements no longer being enforceable. And reach out to me. I would love to work with you guys directly.